I'm Mark Halperin.
And I'm John Heilemann. And with all due respect to the Democratic candidates debating here at the Win tonight, you can run, but you can't hide. Oh, it's Vegas, baby, Vegas! Good evening from the first Democratic presidential debate. We are at the Wynn Hotel here in Sin City, although tonight you could call it Spin City. This room is one of the main reasons the press flies out to these things all over the country. It's the Spin Room, Spin Alley, the Spinder Dome will be your spin buddies for the next hour as the candidates get ready to debate. Mark, the main event tonight is between national frontrunner Hillary Clinton and Granite State and college campus frontrunner Bernie Sanders. One, a household name for 2 decades, closer to 3. The other, a socialist who doesn't mean monster impression. What, my friend, will you be looking for in that cage match?
If Hillary Clinton makes a mistake, it'll be a big deal. Bernie Sanders can get away with mistakes. If he is himself, he's not nervous, if he's high energy, and if he's able to talk about the policy positions that he wants, I think it's almost a lock that he will be the winner tonight.
Well, look, he, I think, has to, it'd be good to show some humor. It'd be good to show some optimism. It'd be good to show some soft side.
Maybe tell a story about a real person.
Yes, right. I mean, we've seen him speak many times. Very strong stump speech for what it is, but a little hectoring sometimes. He's got to kind of break out of that mold, I think. She has different challenges.
Her biggest challenge to me regarding Sanders is there will come a time when either by the moderator's instigation or by something that Sanders says, she's got to decide how to calibrate her response. Right. If he says something that seems like he's sticking it to her a little bit, as either a flip-flopper, as not as progressive as he is, right. I think how she calibrates coming back at him will tell the tale for a lot of how she's judged.
Yeah, I think the other thing you want to look at, or at least that I'm going to be looking at, is the ways in which experience matters. She's done a lot of presidential debates. It was 6 years ago, but she's done a lot of them. 25 debates and forums against Obama. She was really good in those debates. She knows how to do this. She comes in with confidence. He's never done anything like this before.
Democratic debate crowds are raucous. Las Vegas crowds are raucous.
Super
Whose side will the crowd be on? I suspect the Clinton people would have been smart enough to pack the room. Are the Sanders people smart enough to get supporters in there? So he's got his own cheering section.
Right. She's got to make sure that she also has in some ways they have a little bit of the same challenge because she will tend to be programmatic. She will tend to be detailed. There's no doubt in any Democratic voter's mind that Hillary Clinton is accomplished enough and substantive enough to be president. But it's character stuff that she's got to get across. Sanders got to get across the idea that he can get some things done, that he can govern, that he can bring these policy priorities to fruition.
It'll be fascinating to see how much he smiles.
Yeah.
She will use the word listening a lot and the word fighting a lot more. But again, I say there'll be moments between them in exchanges where neither of them really wants to win decisively. Right. They want to get through it.
I wonder if she's going to call him on the socialist thing. Are you really a socialist, sir? What does that mean?
All right, those are the front runners. Now let's talk about the back runners. That is the 3 other men on stage: Martin O'Malley, Jim Webb, and Lincoln Chafee. John, from those 3 guys, what are you looking for?
Well, with all due respect to the latter 2, Jim Webb and Lincoln Chafee, they are not likely to be the Democratic nominee in any scenario.
Can you imagine if they run against Trump, what he would say about them? Oh my God. Super low energy.
Super low energy.
Super low energy.
They're not. They're almost like missing persons on the campaign trail. Martin O'Malley is the wild card, right? This is a big moment for him. This is the first time he's going to have a chance to actually stand toe to toe with these 2 people who have totally eclipsed him. One expectedly, Clinton, one unexpectedly, Sanders. I think the big question is, does O'Malley go negative or not? And I've heard mixed views about what people think in the Democratic consulting class about the wisdom of those choices.
Also, again, I hate to keep going back to the moderators, but they're the timekeepers. Do they give O'Malley the same time as Sanders and Clinton, or do they give him roughly the same amount of time to talk as Webb and as Chafee? And does he fight his way in? He does have something to say that's different.
Yep.
He's a younger guy than the 2 front runners. He's a guy who's been a chief executive. He has things to say. He's been saying them on the campaign trail for months. Right. This is a big audience. He's got a chance to say it.
I mean, the race is still about basically being the alternative to Hillary Clinton. She's still the dominant front runner, even with all the problems she's had. If I were Martin O'Malley, I'd be trying to figure out how do I get a contrast going with Bernie Sanders, whether that's generational, whether that's executive, whether it's on, we believe a lot of the same things, but I can get those things done. Somehow he's got to displace Sanders as the alternative. So I'm interested in seeing how those interactions go more than O'Malley's interactions with Clinton. I think it'll be pretty nice to her.
The other thing is programmatic. Sanders is not super specific programmatically, but his broad themes are things that resonate. Hillary Clinton has put out some specifics, but my sense is Democrats have not really sort of figured out what they're about. Does O'Malley, who has a long list of specifics, he's tried to be the specificity candidate, can he, in the format of a debate with short answers, can he convince people he's got a plan that they find attractive?
I also think it's very difficult to raise this. It's a tricky thing. Gary Hart was very good at it in '84 at raising the generational issue. But to me, it's one of O'Malley's strongest cards, right? Do you, in a new millennium with a rising different Democratic coalition, do you want a 70-year-old or a 75-year-old president at the head of your party? It's a good question.
I predict after tonight there'll be pressure to limit the debates to other candidates. We'll see how Webb and Chafee do.
Okay. Those are 5 candidates. The 5 candidates will be on the debate stage tonight, and it will be obvious, looking at that stage, that a couple people are missing. That's right, Larry Lessig, not invited. Also, perhaps more notably, no Joe Biden. Mark, the vice president is watching at home tonight while he decides if he is going to run. Do you think at this point, at this moment, given everything that's been going on in the world, he may have waited too long and missed his moment?
I think now the bar is higher for him to get in and launch successfully. There was a lot more momentum behind him just a few weeks ago. The New York Times, as always influential and also reflecting the conventional wisdom correctly, had a piece that compared him to Mario Cuomo, and the hand-wringing and the equivocation. And we found it in our focus groups.
Yes.
People say, if you want to be president, it's time to say you want to be president. If you're equivocating in October, how can you be competing in Iowa, New Hampshire in February? So I think it's still possible to get in now. I think it's possible to get in January, as I keep saying. But he's going to have to change the narrative and convince people he didn't dither.
Yeah, when I believe first reported that there was thinking in his world about pushing the deadline back from October to November, the thinking around him was, among the people who are advising him, was, let's wait. Hillary's in a free fall. This free fall is only going to continue. Biden's only going to continue on his upward trajectory. Let's wait until after this debate. Let's wait specifically until after the Benghazi hearings. And one of the biggest changes that no one has really remarked on is the extent to which the Kevin McCarthy comments and that change in the Benghazi dynamic has a hugely negative effect on Joe Biden. What could have been a disaster for her now looks increasingly like it could be a triumph. And that changes Biden's calculations a lot in terms of whether the nomination is going to come to him.
A lot of talk here about Biden. CNN made a show of having the extra podiums on standby. People are talking about him here, but Democrats I've talked to, they're not thirsting for him. They're not desperate to have him in this race.
It is the funniest thing in the world that CNN and others spent all day yesterday talking about, is Biden going to come at the last minute? You and I both know what kind of prep they put Joe Biden through every time he goes on a Sunday show. It's days of murder boarding to get Joe Biden ready to go on Meet the Press. Do you think there's any chance under any circumstances he would arrive here having done no debate prep?
He's not the king of ad hocery, at least as far as his staff is concerned.
No, absolutely.
No, I know it's silly, but I will say again, he can still do this. He can tap into a lot of support, but he's left himself. And look, he's dealing with the family situation. I'm not criticizing him for this, but the reality is he's left himself now a steeper climb if he gets in than he had just a few weeks ago.
The longer you wait, the more chances you let events occur that changes your calculus. That's happened for him.
All right, debates are fun to watch and they're fun to cover, but they can also be kind of a mess. John, I think you know what I'm talking about. There's a little controversy around the question of the Democratic Party and the debates. Here's the vice chairman of the DNC this morning on CNN, one of several interviews she's done challenging the DNC chairwoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, over Debbie Wasserman Schultz's claim that she widely consulted with DNC members before she decided to limit the debate process to 6 and only 6.
Chairwoman had claimed a month ago that she had spoken with, communicated and consulted with officers of the DNC about her decision to limit debates to 6 and to put this retribution policy in place, this exclusivity clause, and that never occurred. I can tell you, speaking for myself, that I didn't find out about her decision until after the fact. There was no consultation and no communication.
So that exclusivity clause means not only are there only 6 official debates, but if you participate in any unofficial debate, you can't be in the official ones. John, Republicans are gleeful. Tell everybody about the reporting you've got on BloombergPolitics.com right now about this fight within the Democratic Party, particularly a lot of ire directed at the chairwoman.
That story of mine will be up shortly, as soon as I finish this show. But the most important, well, there are a number of important things. One of them is that on this particular dispute, Tulsi Gabbard versus Debbie Wasserman Schultz, about whether the chairwoman consulted widely, on the basis of all the reporting I've done, Tulsi Gabbard is speaking the truth. Debbie Wasserman Schultz did not consult anybody apart from a couple of political consultants and advisors. She did not talk to any of the vice chairs. The other vice chairs, many of them are furious over the fact that she didn't consult with them and with the outcome, both.
And there's no other conclusion one can reach to it, that she did that in order to protect Hillary Clinton.
Well, look, I mean, as you know, she was a co-chair chair of Hillary's campaign, when there was a proposal early taken to the campaigns that they might do 8 debates. The Clinton campaign was the only campaign that pushed back and said they wanted fewer.
If Hillary Clinton's team could say, what do we want? They'd say, we want 6, which is just enough to no one complain, and we want all 5 people on the stage to keep her from having to face off against a smaller group.
And I'll tell you what's also key.
That's what she got.
Among those DNC chairs, some of them are vocally, outspokenly critical, like Tulsi Gabbard, and those who are not, who are still sitting on their anger about this. What they see is actually almost more problematic than the 6 is the fact that only 4 are taking place before the first vote in Iowa. They don't even regard that as a real 6 because the other 2 are general election state debates.
It's a sham of a mockery of 2 shams of a mockery.
It's a Travis mockery.
And
4 debates.
And Debbie Wasserman Schultz has done a lot of television interviews today, and she keeps saying, I don't want to talk about process.
Right. She equivocates all over the place.
I don't know. Call me crazy. Chair of the party. You know what that job involves?
Process. Oh, we got that right on the bell. That was awesome. Tonight is all about the Democrats, but there is some news from Republican world. First of all, today Jeb Bush unveiled a health care plan designed to repeal and replace Obamacare. It would simplify the health care policy, would offer income tax credits for catastrophic coverage, and give states block grants to finance care for low-income Americans. What do you think about that, Mark?
He's got to have a plan for this. They all do. This is one of the first that's detailed. There are a few others.
All right. The second big piece of news has to do with Carly Fiorina. She announced that she has raised $6.8 million. That's real money, hard money, in the third quarter. That is not only hard money, but it's a little bit more hard money than current phenom media darling Marco Rubio raised in that same quarter. Implications of that.
Super impressive that she was able to build up support that quickly off the strong debate performance. Let's see how she spends it. Let's see if she can keep it going. But no doubt that is a significant development.
You can't think Marco Rubio is playing a hot hand right now unless you admit that Carly Fiorina, too, is playing a hard,
and a little bit hotter.
A very hot hand.
And she was starting from more of a standing start.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. All right, we are just getting started. Speaking of standing starts, we have got a huge Vegas lineup for you over this next little less than an hour now. The hacks, the flacks, the people with the greenbacks, maybe even some blackjack. Double down! We will be right back. What are the 3 things you're going to be looking for in this Democratic debate? Go.
Wit, I'm looking for insight, and I'm looking for wisdom.
You know what they say in sports, the intangibles. How does it come across on stage?
I'm actually interested to see if O'Malley will hit Clinton.
Does Bernie Sanders comb his hair for it? I'll be interested to see. No offense to hair challenge people.
That was a piece of our on-the-road Democratic expert focus group leading up to this Vegas debate. It was like The Hangover, except with no Bengal tiger. We'll have more of those brainy men weighing in throughout the evening, but right now we're joined by our colleague and obsessive hair product consumer, Phil Mattingly, as well as the journalistic sage of the Silver State, the Nostradamus of Nevada politics, our friend John Ralston. Gentlemen, good to see you. John, age before beauty here, so...
Thanks for that, John, by the way.
What can I say? He's a very pretty young man.
I understand.
Give us a sense of just right now. This is a caucus state. Organization matters a lot in the Democratic caucus. Give us a state of the relative strengths and weaknesses of the Clinton organization and the Sanders organization here.
Well, there essentially is no Sanders organization. Bernie Sanders held his first organizational meeting in Nevada just over the weekend. They got a few hundred people to talk about it. He has not had any presence here before that. Hillary Clinton has had an infrastructure set up for months. She hired all the people who helped beat her when Obama was in the caucus in 2008 and some people who helped her in that caucus. So she has Latino leaders. The Latino vote is obviously very important here. So she has him far out. She's the only one with any organization here.
What would you guess the floor and ceiling is on the size of the electorate when we get to next year and these Democratic caucuses take place? What's the most will turn out? What's the fewest?
Well, I think that there isn't that much interest right now, Mark, and so it's going to be tough to tell whether it will be. It's certainly not going to be what it was when Obama
How many
and Clinton
voted 8 years ago?
I don't remember the numbers. 30-something thousand, I think.
So it could be lower because that had a lot of interest.
It's potentially lower, and because it's still October. We look at this in these silos by the day, right? Not everyone's like that, and so by the time that comes around, there could be excitement. Who knows? But I would expect it to be lower than 08.
Phil, let me ask you. You spend most of your time in Washington, D.C., capital of the United United States, where there's
as an insult,
where there's a certain amount of chaos going on in the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Right? How much do you expect the chaos that's going on in the other party to creep into the discussion that happens on the Democratic debate stage tonight?
It would be Hillary Clinton's dream. I think if her campaign had their way, every single thing she said would be a contrast with the 15 people that are currently in the race, or Kevin McCarthy, or Paul Ryan, or the Freedom Caucus, or anything like that. I don't think it seeps in much tonight. It might start to come in a little bit, but what happens next week is when that goes full throttle. When Hillary Clinton starts testifying in front of the Select Committee on Benghazi, that becomes front and center, and her team, if she gets through tonight okay, and gets to that moment, they think that could be the turnaround moment for her because of that contrast.
Fingertip feel, I don't get the sense, ask you both, I don't get the sense in talking to the representatives of the campaigns, including Sanders and Clinton, that it's tension city here. They seem to be much more relaxed than at a normal debate. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that there's a recognition that they will need to not attack one another, but make sure that differences in policy are laid out. But they're not probing major attack lines. It doesn't seem like everybody's very nervous and expecting a big knockout fight no matter what
John,
they're dealing
with.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier is true, that Hillary Clinton really just doesn't want to make any mistakes tonight, right? Bernie Sanders has to present himself as presidential, but he could still make a few mistakes. And I think if Sanders comes after her at all on not being consistent on TPP or anything else, I think she has to show some kind of humor. She has to be disarming in some way. By the way, Mark, real quickly, I had the number wrong. I was thinking of the Republicans. It was actually about 120,000 turned out, much bigger number, but it's going to be much lower than that.
Real quick, John, do you think there's any prospect that Bernie Sanders has of being able to tap into Latino votes here in this caucus state? Very important constituency. Hillary Clinton very strong with that.
I don't think there's any chance at all. There's been some polling in Nevada now that shows that he's very weak, and across the country, right, with minority voters. Right. She has some very smart people tapping into that vote. The Culinary Union, as you know, is the key organizer for Latino vote. She has really gone out of her way to appeal to them after going after them, you guys may remember, in 2008 when they endorsed Obama early.
Let's say Sanders wins Iowa and New Hampshire. Is this a firewall for her that's impregnable, or could the unions start to have second thoughts and say maybe, or at least the members maybe, we're with Bernie?
I don't think the membership or the leadership of the Culinary Union is in love with Hillary Clinton, but I do think she set up Nevada to be a firewall with her organization that she has set up here. I think she actually, a long time ago, believed that she might have some problems in New Hampshire, wanted to make sure she won Nevada.
All right, Phil Mattingly, I was going to ask you what you expected from the only man at this event who's handsomer than you. That's Martin O'Malley, but we don't have time. So I'll instead thank you for being here. And also thank John Ralston. Of course. We will have more debate talk and more Vegas after these words from our sponsors. Who has more at stake in this debate?
I think Hillary does because she's the front runner.
She has the most at stake here, and it's most difficult for her.
Every word that she utters is going to be, instantly fact-checked.
The three guys who are 1%, this is their last and only chance.
High stakes indeed here in Las Vegas, the most exciting city in the country, except for New York, LA, and Chicago. Also Austin. Boston's very nice indeed, but this is a great place. Anyway, we're joined now by the head of the AFL-CIO, President Richard Trumka, who joins us from Washington, and with us here is our colleague Melinda Henenberger. Mr. President, thank you for joining us. Are you a capitalist?
I'm sorry?
Are you a capitalist?
No, I'm a trade unionist, quite frankly.
So you reject the label of capitalist for yourself, just like Bernie Sanders does. Is that a laugh that's a yes or a laugh that a no?
It's a laugh because it's a silly question.
Do you think that Bernie Sanders saying he's not a capitalist could be politically problematic for him?
Well, I'm sure in some segments it will. In other segments, I'm sure it won't. I think more people are more concerned about the issues that he's addressing and how he's addressing them. Look, American workers and the American public are angry because they think the politicians and the leaders in this country aren't listening to them. He's been listening to them, and he's talking what they want to hear. So sticking to the issues, I think, is going to make for a very, very good debate tonight, a great conversation about the economy, and it's going to get people a lot of support in the process.
Mr. President, you talked about some months ago, you talked about how important it was for Hillary Clinton to eventually have a position of some kind on TPP, and said that would matter in terms of her ability to court labor support. Now that she has a position, what do you think the political implications of that position are?
Well, I think it's very, very helpful to her to come out against TPP. Because she looked at it, as we have looked at it, and it doesn't meet the needs of the American economy, the American country, or the American worker. It's a bad agreement, and she came out against it. Workers identify with that, and they're going to thank her for it.
When you're deciding which candidate you're going to choose, how important is electability to you?
Well, here's the process that we're using to get to that candidate, or candidates perhaps. We've asked all of our affiliated unions to go back to their entire membership, give them the facts on what each one of those candidates stand for, issue by issue, then have a genuine conversation and see what our membership has to say, and then it'll come up forward. I think electability is what we make it. If you start talking to the people's issues, things they want to hear, if they're convinced that you're going to rewrite the rules of the economy to help working families, I think they're not only going to give you their vote, they're going to give you their active support and come out, and they can elect people that way.
Mr. Trumka, you're a nonpartisan organization. You've got plenty of members who are Democrats, some who are Republicans, some neither. If you were to appraise the Republican field, which one or two of the Republican presidential candidates do you think are most in line with the House of Labor?
Are most what?
Most in line with the labor agenda that you and your members care about?
This field of candidates it's been difficult to find any of those candidates that are really aligned with the best interest of working families. We invited them to come to our executive council to talk to us about the issues. All of them declined except one, Mike Huckabee. He came and gave his positions, some of which were in line with ours, most of which were not.
Okay, Mr. Trumka, thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the debate tonight. We enjoyed having you with us. Thank you. And Melinda, thank you for coming and joining in. Go ahead.
Debate tonight.
Thank you. We'll be back with some more hedge bets after this.
Hey, Mark, what do you call a really quick shot of Las Vegas Boulevard? A strip tease. And speaking of teases, here's what our roving Democratic panel said when we asked them what advice they would give to Martin O'Malley. What would your one piece of advice to Martin O'Malley?
Give it your best shot because you're in extreme jeopardy here.
Distinguish yourself somehow, some way between the two front runners.
You got to start attacking the rest of the other candidates. You got to start drawing contrasts.
And by the rest of the other
nothing to lose. You got nothing to lose at that point.
We'll be right back. Secretary Clinton, if she makes one error, that'll be the story. Is that not a huge risk for her?
It is, but so what? She's running for president.
That's always been the case. And I think she's actually in position to have a pretty good week.
She can't go into the debate with that mindset. I think to the extent that she hasn't done as well as some people hope, it is as a result of excessive caution.
Mistake or no mistake, there is one big winner at the win tonight, and that is you, because we're on for an extra half an hour because of the debate, and we begin that half an hour right now from Las Vegas, where the Democrats are getting ready to tear each other apart, or maybe to play nice with each other. Who knows? We'll see. We're here in the spin room with our guests now, former Los Angeles mayor and Hillary Clinton mega supporter Antonio Villaraigosa, and Hillary Clinton's super PAC money person in chief, guy Cecil. You two just met today for the first time.
Yes, we did.
So we listened to some sound bites there about whether Hillary Clinton can afford to make a mistake tonight. You both are watching this with great interest. Mr. Mayor, has Bernie Sanders made any mistakes in his campaign so far? And if so, what are they?
I haven't spent a whole lot of time watching Bernie Sanders. I am supporting Hillary Clinton. I think he's done a lot of things right, clearly. He certainly speaks with an authentic voice that has generated a lot of support for him. I think what distinguishes her, frankly, is a track record. A track record second to none. And although all of the Democratic candidates are people I have a great deal of respect for, I've worked with some of them, particularly Governor O'Malley when he was mayor and governor. I think at the end of the day, that's what distinguishes her. And it's going to be a long campaign. I think she'll do well in the debate tonight, but ultimately it's about voter contact and slogging through these next few months, and I expect that she'll do that really well.
Guy, what do you think the biggest pitfall is that Hillary Clinton has to avoid tonight? What's the biggest potential problem?
Well, I think the most important thing that she needs to do is make sure that she addresses the things she wants to address. You know, she spent the last 4 months rolling out policy proposal after policy proposal, and yet almost none of them get that attention. And so she needs to make sure she's sharing her vision, sharing her policy, sharing her proposals, and not getting bogged down with overly long answers about emails or things that Anderson Cooper or others want to talk about.
So is that the pitfall then?
I think it's getting too involved in process questions and not taking the opportunities that she's going to be given to clearly lay out her vision for the country and why she's the only candidate that has the strength to get these things actually done in Washington.
She is doing pretty well by most measures. What would you like to see her do better?
You know, she's very warm, a very generous person. You get that one-on-one. You don't always get it on TV. I hope that she'll be able to project that because those of us who know her to be a very warm person who really cares about people who are struggling right now. And I think her candidacy is about that, about the notion that we ought to reward work, that when you work hard and play by the rules, stagnant wages for decades, or at least since her husband was in office, isn't good for America. And making those investments is what she's been about her whole life. And I think talking about that about real people is what I'd like to see tonight.
Guy, you worked for Secretary Clinton back in 2008. Barack Obama had huge crowds in that campaign to the point where people in your world suddenly looked up one day and said, that's a movement. That's not a campaign. That's a movement. And the movement was enough to make him president of the United States. Why is what Bernie Sanders is doing right now, why is that not the same thing? Why is that not a movement to be afraid of?
Sure. Well, look, I think crowds are easy to generate. Howard Dean had big crowds. His inauguration didn't go as planned. I don't think crowds are necessarily indicative of who has vision, of who has the ground game, of who has the infrastructure to build a long-term campaign to win in the states that matter. I mean, at the end of the day, I actually agree with Mark's column today. Hillary Clinton, after the last 4 months, still is the person with the highest likelihood of being the next president of the United States. And she just needs to stay focused on communicating her vision, answering questions directly with voters in town halls like she's doing, and ultimately she's going to be successful.
How do you meet this challenge? That she wants to succeed a Democratic president who will have been in office for 8 years. And she wants to say, I'm going to make this better, I'm going to make this better, I'm going to make this better. How do you answer the question, what happened to the guy who was president for 8 years? Why didn't he fix all this?
Sure, well, I think she's answered that question. I mean, she has said that this president has taken us from one of the worst economic crises in the history of the country. And we have made enormous progress on a whole range of issues. We saved the auto industry. We turned the economy around in many ways. But there are still too many Americans who are not feeling the benefits of that. And that she has a plan to move us not just from recovery, but to helping real Americans not just eke out a living for themselves, but to actually make a life for their families, for their kids, and to take care of, their parents. And I think as long as she stays focused on that, everything is not always in reference to this president. It's about looking forward and about how we continue to make the country better for the people that haven't felt a lot of the economic success we've seen.
Mr. Mayor, we look up, let's pretend we live 4 months in the future. It's the middle of February. By whatever, dint of whatever circumstances, Hillary Clinton has lost the Iowa caucuses to Bernie Sanders. She loses the New Hampshire primary. What then?
She'll win South Carolina and Nevada and every state after that. I don't expect that that's going to happen. Look, nobody wins every state. She won't win every state. But I expect that she will be the Democratic nominee, and for the reasons that I said. And I think Guy is right when he says, the fact that Senator Sanders gets big crowds is, a good thing. Nobody's poo-pooing that. President Obama got big crowds, but he also had a great organization in Iowa. We have a great organization in Iowa. We have a great organization in Nevada. We've contacted some 320,000 voters here. I expect that this isn't just about debates. It's about the hard trench work of making a compelling case with everyday voters, and she's going to do that.
I'm going to ask you both the same question, then we got to go. So just a yes/no answer, simple. Asking everybody tonight: are you a capitalist? Yes or no? Are you a capitalist?
Yes.
All right, that's 2 yeses. Mayor Villaraigosa, Guy Cecil, thank you both for joining us. We appreciate it. All right, we got to get these Hillary supporters out of here, because up next it's Bernie time. The socialist candidate's brain trust, upper echelon, top command is here right after this.
What's your one piece of advice to Bernie Sanders?
Keep staying positive.
Be human.
Be Bernie Sanders.
Keep what you're doing on the stump.
Don't attack. It's not in his interest. Not that I love Hillary. Nobody's above attack. But part of why he's catching fire is he's not an insult comic. He is running really powerful ideas.
It is Bernie Mania. Feel the burn. Burning Man, the Howard Burns Show. Senator Sanders gets his chance to score off with Hillary Clinton tonight. And with us now are 2 of his top senior-most advisors, Jeff Weaver and Tad Devine. Gentlemen, I'm going to give you a sentence. I'm going to ask you to fill in the blank, okay?
Sure.
If Bernie Sanders accomplishes blank tonight, it will be a win.
Look, if he introduces himself to the 35 to 40% of people in polls who say they don't have enough of information to make an opinion of him, that's a big win for us. The more people know Bernie Sanders, the more they like him. So this is a big introduction for him to millions and millions of people who don't know who he is.
Is that just a recitation of his beliefs, his views on issues, or is he introducing himself as a human being?
No, it's both. It's both. People want to know about the biography. People also want to know about where he stands on the issues, his vision on income inequality and a corrupt political system. Absolutely.
He doesn't generally talk about his biography very much in public, at least in my experience. Is that going to be different tonight?
No, I mean, I think you'll hear parts of his biography. I mean, he's not a big, this is who I am kind of guy. He's more of an issues kind of guy. So,
he grew up in a log cabin. Did you know that?
He built himself. Cut down a cherry tree and told the truth. You heard that?
You guys have been spending time with him prepping a little bit. Yeah. Is he nervous at all? This is a big deal.
I don't think he's nervous. I mean, he's been speaking to 25,000 people in auditoriums. This is a new experience for him. Listen, this is his first presidential debate, obviously, so it's a new experience. But I think once he gets out there and gets through his opening statement,
tell us something funny that happened during debate prep.
Something funny in debate prep.
Anything? Come on.
There wasn't a lot of funny moments that we want to talk about right now.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question I'm asking everybody, and
sure.
I'm going to take yes, no from both of you, and then I will have a follow-up. Are you a capitalist?
Yes, I am.
Are you a capitalist?
No.
No. All right, so there's division in the high command.
Yes.
Your answer is the same as your candidate's. Yours is different. Yeah. A lot of people in Clinton world and in the press are saying his answer is problematic.
Find out what he is if he's not a capitalist.
So the question is, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that people who own capital should run the government? Then no, I'm not.
All right, by that definition, are you a capitalist?
That people who own capital should run the government? I think, we have a democracy, and that's who should run the government, the voters, the people.
Well, there are different definitions of capitalism, but let me just ask
you.
That
would be, but that's my definition. So that's the definition.
Bill Clinton's thought is eventually Democratic voters are going to say, this guy's just too liberal to be our nominee. He'll lose in a general election. What do you think of that analysis?
It couldn't be more off base. Look, Bernie Sanders has great cross appeal. This is the guy who's going to expand the base of the Democratic Party. This is the guy who's going to bring back the blue-collar Reagan Democrats to the Democratic Party. It's what he did in Vermont. I've worked with him for over 30 years. You go to rural, conservative, Republican parts of Vermont, those people love Bernie Sanders because even though they don't agree with him on guns, they don't agree with him on abortion, they don't agree with him on gay rights, they say, you know what, Bernie's down there fighting for me, he's not bought out, he's an honest guy, he fights for my economic interests. I mean, I've seen it. It's incredible.
Tad, every candidate who goes into their first presidential debate is, it's the first time they're ever doing it, right?
Yeah.
You guys have prepped him. What are the things you told him not to do? Definitely avoid this. Definitely, that's a problem. Just make sure you don't do that.
That the podiums are very close, and this is probably not the best.
Right.
That's not the best gesture, I think, I mean, some mechanical things like that. But listen, in terms of what he's going to say and how he's going to say it.
What are the pitfalls he has to avoid?
Well, I think, Bernie has to just be Bernie, okay? I mean, I don't think he's not, a regular politician. He's got a very powerful message. The pitfall would be, I think, not delivering that message, okay? So he's going to try to do it as much as he can.
I'm going to count. How many times is he going to smile while on camera? What's your guess?
4.
I'm going to count. So, unlike some reporters, we're not super impatient to say, why aren't you already ahead in all 50 states? You're ahead in one state. You're even, or I think maybe ahead by the right kind of poll in Iowa.
Right, yes.
Is it possible to stay behind in the other 48 as you are now, win those first 2 and revolutionize the field, or do you have to get ahead some other places before February?
Can I answer that?
Yeah,
I worked
sure.
for Walter Mondale in 1984, and I saw what happened to the front runner of the race when Gary Hart won New Hampshire. Listen, this thing moves very quickly in the wake of early success. But I don't think we're going to be behind in 48 states.
So you think before New Year's or February, you will go ahead in some other states?
I think it's possible, yeah. I mean,
what
listen.
states would you think?
Well, listen, I mean, I saw a field poll where 35 in California.
Yeah. That'd be a nice state to go ahead in.
You better believe it. There's a poll in Connecticut out today. I didn't see it. It was, what was
12
it?
points. 12 points.
Yeah. I think
Oregon was 4 points, I think, a while ago.
I think there's a lot of places where Bernie's really catching on and where we could succeed. Now, I think Iowa and New Hampshire, they know him best, and obviously we've got people on the ground. We're running real campaigns there. That's where we expect to have the most success most quickly.
And today there was on TV there was a national poll done, and they showed the Obama-Clinton poll from the same date in 2007, and Bernie is closer to Secretary Clinton than Obama was on the same day.
There's been a lot of discussion at this debate over the last, not prior to the debate, yesterday and today, about Joe Biden. Obviously, this has been going on for months, but very acutely in the last 24 hours. Is he going to show up? Is he going to come flying in at the last minute and be on stage? Kind of crazy talk. But the question of Biden does kind of hover over this race. So, first of all, would you guys rather see Joe Biden in the race or stay out of the race?
My view is that, I mean, listen, I don't want to make that decision for him. I understand and respect him so much. Personal decision. Political calculus is fine.
Yes,
I think if he gets in, it's going to pull vote away from Secretary Clinton. I think if he gets in, he can win. And that's somebody else we got to beat, okay? So, I mean, that's my honest calculation.
Right, so it's a flip of a coin for you in terms of pros and cons.
It's not going to change our campaign at all if he gets in.
What about you?
Right. No. Look, the campaign we've been running is really sort of, I mean, there has not been a lot of give and take between the candidates. It's really, Bernie has really been going out there talking about his vision for the country. And if the vice president gets in, we're going to go out there and talk about our vision for the country. I mean, it's the same game.
Right, but you don't think you lose a lot of votes. It's just not the votes for Bernie are not, I want an alternative to Hillary votes, right? No. They are, I like Bernie votes.
Yes,
At least absolutely. That's your conviction.
No, and I think the polling...
You're not worried that they're going to go off to Biden if Biden comes in.
No.
Stipulating that you guys have been pretty successful so far. Each of you tell me one thing the campaign or the candidate has done wrong to date.
One thing he's done wrong? Well, work too much.
Stop it.
I'm sorry, okay? No.
He works just too darn hard.
Yeah, he works too much. No.
He's too honest.
Have you made any mistakes, or you've run a flawless campaign?
No. Well, let me say this. So, I mean, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but when you start a campaign like this, you really don't know how much money is going to come through the door, right? This is a low-dollar funded campaign. It's not like he fundraised for 2 years for a super PAC and then suddenly started a campaign with those money. So you really don't know how much money is going to come through the door. So if I had a time machine and I could go back in time, I might ramp up staffing earlier than we have done that.
Let me go answer again, and maybe you'll believe it this time. We've overscheduled the candidate, okay, honestly, and I think that is a mistake we've made, and we should try
changing that now?
I hope so. I hope we do.
Does he think he's going to be the next president of the United States?
He thinks he can be.
Yeah,
for sure.
But does he ever talk about what he'll do as president?
No, we haven't got there yet.
We're talking about getting to be the nominee, and then we'll talk about the general election.
I know you guys are really focused on Bernie Sanders running his kind of campaign. I know you also are political professionals, so you spend some time each day thinking about Hillary Clinton, what she's doing, how to compete with her. How many minutes a day do you spend thinking about Martin O'Malley?
Well, as many as we spent thinking about Hillary Clinton, 0. Okay, I know this is unbelievable, but I've been saying this from the beginning. If we run a campaign against her or against anybody, we're going to lose. If we run a campaign that's focused on him, what he says and how he says it, we have a chance of winning. Okay, and that's the campaign we're going to run.
Right. I mean, in terms of her putting out our positions, what have you, don't think a lot about her. I mean, obviously, when we were attacked by Correct the Record, we had to spend some time, dealing with that kind of political infighting.
So we raised $1 million too in 48 hours.
Right, exactly.
Do you have an opposition researcher?
We have a researcher.
I don't know if we do research on Hillary Clinton.
we're very familiar with her record. We had to be to prepare for this
strange
day.
to think your opposition researcher would be doing opposition research on anyone
No, I
else.
don't get research. No, I mean, we have to look up, we're having a debate tonight, right? If people are going to say things.
Yes.
We have people's quote, we look up people's old quotes. I mean,
I don't think there's anything wrong with opposition.
I don't either. No.
All right.
Have either of you talked to Ken Starr lately? Just kidding.
All right. Jeff Weaver, Tad Devine. This is, turns out, is a television first. The first time the two of you have ever appeared on television.
Take it on the road, guys. Very good.
This is incredibly good. We're going to do this maybe every week, maybe even every day. Who knows?
Sounds good.
We will have more from Las Vegas straight ahead. It's going to be like The Hangover minus Mike Tyson. After this.
Benvenuti qui a Las Vegas. Come on to Vegas, adventure never ends, baby. Do you want to have fun?
Come for the show.
The entertainment capital of the world. We would like to send a message to somebody that everybody loves, Mr. Joe Biden.
Please, Joe, come to Vegas.
Come to Vegas, Joe. We need you, baby.
CNN says you can still get in, even if you declare on the day of the debate.
You need to get this debate all shook up, baby. Oh. Hey, Joe, I hope you jump in, man.
Mr. Joe, I know that your favorite meal is pasta. We have 7 different types of pasta.
Hey, Joe, come to Las Vegas.
It's the greatest city in the world. Hope to see you soon, Joe.
It'd be cool if that were real, right? But it wasn't. It was made by our resident filmmaker, Griffin Hammond, and our resident troublemaker, Matt Negrin. They made what should be the next Las Vegas tourism video, but it's not. All right. Here in the spin room now, we're joined by 2 of our colleagues, Jennifer Epstein and Sal Kapoor. They both got pieces up right now on the freshly designed and redesigned BloombergPolitics.com website. Thanks, you two, for joining us. We talked earlier in the program that we had a shared sense with a number of us that the Clinton folks seem remarkably not on edge on the eve of a pretty high-pressured thing. You spend a lot more time with them than we do. Do they seem to you pretty calm? And if so, why do you think that is?
Well, I think, one, they're calm because they know that we're going to read however they're behaving, so they're going to try as much as possible to come off as calm.
They've got poker face.
Yeah, and her team just went through and did a walkthrough of the hall. She herself did not join them, which again kind of speaks to kind of how she's an unusual candidate.
You know what we say in Chappaqua? Walk through, schmuck through.
Yeah.
She doesn't need to see it.
Right. She's been on stages before, more than once or twice. Right. So I do think that there is a certain amount of confidence and calm, and they just want her to go in and you know, just be solid, if nothing else.
I'm still trying to get over that little Mark Halperin, Lady Gaga thing. That's kind of got me a little rattled. Sahil, the Sanders campaign. We just asked those guys what they would consider a win. What do you think the real answer to that question is? What's a win for Bernie Sanders tonight from their point of view?
I think 2 things. One is taking his message to a broader audience, improving his name recognition, which he has not nearly as much as Hillary Clinton. But the bigger issue for him is to appeal to non-white voters. He does not do well with non-white voters. He's behind Hillary Clinton by about 50 points with blacks. He does not do well with Hispanics either. And the Clinton name is a known quantity with minority voters, and he needs them if he has any chance of beating her. So he has to offer a message that will appeal to them as well.
Right. So you think he has to talk about immigration? Talk about what's the issue set by which he breaks through with them?
Right. So immigration with Hispanics, I think with African American voters, he'll talk about his fight to end institutional racism. He'll talk about criminal justice reform, and he has to do this stuff persuasively because he's not a known quantity with them like the Clintons are. He has to persuade them that he's serious about the issues and that he'll fight harder than Hillary Clinton would.
Obviously, the debate is a big deal, but I always like to look to the next thing, her testimony before the Benghazi committee. What do you know about what, if anything, she's done to start to prepare for that?
That I don't know a whole lot about. I mean, I think some of it is kind of, you know, she's done this before. I mean, she did this a couple of years ago. I think that what's different now is obviously that the email questions are going to be a big part of it, and that they're going to use Kevin McCarthy's comments, which just have this
My theory is she's
incredible.
going to bring an iPad with her with a video clip of Kevin McCarthy's soundbite and hold it up every so often and just hit play.
Right, like
Probably
reminder.
The best thing that could have happened to her.
Yeah,
and right on the eve of
but I do think that it's a different dynamic because there are going to be questions about Benghazi, obviously, and I think that the committee members realize that they have to at least make a show of talking about Benghazi.
Since it's not called the email committee.
Right, but at the same time, these email questions are endlessly fascinating, and she hasn't been a totally open book on them.
Let me just stick with that for 1 second. Like, you know, you think about what she's been doing. instead of having a month to prepare for a debate and then another month before the next debate, she's in 2 successive, very high-stakes things in the course of a week in terms of murder boarding and getting ready for that.
Right.
What do you know, Jen, about both of those? Who's doing that work with her? Talk about both debate prep and Benghazi work. Who's playing who? Who's playing Gowdy? Who played Sanders?
I don't know who's playing Gowdy. I'll try to find out in the next couple of days. But she had 2 of her top people, Bob Barnett, her lawyer, playing Sanders. She had Jake Sullivan, her longtime policy aide, playing Martin O'Malley. They were the only 2 people who were in these debates, at least as of a couple of days ago. There was no mock Joe Biden, as much as the people at CNN seemed to be hopeful that he would get into the debate.
Do you know how many hours they did? About roughly how many hours of debate prep?
Not yet. They've been very guarded about the prep. I'm sure you'll maybe get a TikTok on it.
And 2 people I think they're not doing in mock sessions, Jim Webb and Lincoln Chafee. Some people are going to learn for the first time that they're actually running for president.
Oh,
yeah.
That was mean.
Ouch.
That's mean.
What do you think about from going forward from here? What are you thinking about in terms of Sanders? What metrics are you looking at to say, after tonight, what does he need to do to move up and be in a stronger position?
I think one thing he needs to do is improve his standing with Democratic voters who do not identify as very liberal.
Right.
He's strong with them. He leads Hillary Clinton among these voters, according to a recent Quinnipiac poll, but he's down considerably among moderate Democrats, among somewhat liberal Democrats, and among conservative Democrats. So he needs to kind of expand that appeal a little bit.
You think? Go ahead.
And the other thing is, as his advisors were just talking to you guys about, he does very well with white working class voters. So if he can bring more of them into the tent, then it could kind of change the equation.
You think saying he's not a capitalist is going to hurt him?
To an extent, I think the more he talks about it, the more people realize that he's not the kind of socialist that people think of the buzzword, the alarm that usually triggers. He's not that kind of socialist.
Okay. So. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate it. Remember, check out our website, BloombergPolitics.com, for their latest stories and a lot of other great stuff on the debate. A lot of analysis, Silas' piece on 5 things to watch for tonight. Jen's going to have a piece later on how Hillary Clinton did on the big stage. And we'll be right back with one final big giant plug.
Mark and I, we're going to have some pieces up tonight when the debate ends on BloombergPolitics.com. We'll be looking at who won and who lost and how the race has changed. And if you live in New York, San Francisco, or Boston, and you want to listen to the debate, set your radios to Bloomberg Radio. Thanks for watching. For all of us here in Vegas, sayonara.